Why is proportion in photography important? Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Rick McEvoy, and this week on my blog, actually last week, I wrote the blog post I've given you the title for. Bit of a different post, something a little bit deeper and a little bit, hopefully a bit more detailed and a bit more informative. Not that my other stuff isn't informative, obviously. So I wanted to explore some of the important things that we need to consider before we take a photo. Now, proportion is one of these things, and how we use proportion when we take a photo will have a significant impact on the photo that we create. So it's one well worth looking into, and not one that I've written about before. So like I say, an interesting post, even if I do say so myself. So this was what I'd like to call the answery bit. Proportion in photography is important, yes, I'm reading this out, and if used correctly can help us to create better composed and indeed more interesting photos. Get the proportions right in a photo and it looks natural, familiar and pleasing to the eye. Get the proportions wrong and a photo can be awkward, unfamiliar and uncomfortable even. Now, you can of course change the proportions within a photo for creative effect, and also for artistic license, of course you can. But the proportions of things within a photo will influence how good a photo is or is not. And it will also influence the viewer's eye and how they see the composition. Now, this is a very important point, and this is something you'll find in every episode of my blog and my podcast and everything. The most important thing in photography is the photo and what other people other than you are looking at. Everything else that you've done, everything else in the background, it sort of goes out the window really, because nobody knows about that. No one cares what aperture you used. No one cares what camera you used. No one cares about anything other than what they are looking at. So proportion is an important part of composition. And of course, this is a subjective thing, of course it is, but let's just go through some of the things that I talk about. Well, in the blog post, I talk about composition. The human eye, composition, I like to say composition is king. The composition is the be-all and end-all of every photograph and is the single most important thing in photography. There you go, I've said it. And I feel better for doing so. Other things, the human eye, how we as humans perceive what we're looking at, is very, very important. Then you've got aspect ratios, and then you've got some rules of composition and things that help with proportion, like rule of thirds, golden ratio, golden spiral, diagonal lines. And then I move on to the bit that I'd like to talk a little bit about here, which is the creative use of proportion in photography. Now, you can, the way to change the proportions and the aspects and the relative sizes of things in a scene is to move. So if you're stood here, looking at your subject that you're going to take a photo of, if you move towards the subject matter, it becomes bigger and more prominent. If you move away, it becomes smaller and fades, and it gets lost in the background. So the proportions change as you move forwards and backwards, and obviously the same happens if you move left or if you move right, or up or down. So you can have a big influence on the proportions within a photo. And the other way is by changing the focal length. A telephoto lens will bring things closer together. It compresses the depth of field, makes things feel closer. On the other hand, use a wide angle lens to take the same photo. Things are more spread apart. The subject matter is smaller. It's lost in everything else. So obviously it depends what you're taking a photo of. Of course it does, because that's a big determinant. The proportions, like I say, they need to be natural for some photos, and sometimes you want to exaggerate them. Apologies, I just lost my thread then as an email came in. So different focal lengths will influence the proportions in a photo. Very important also that we don't forget the crop factor. I cover all these things in the blog, so you don't need to listen to them here. That's okay. And then I finish off with the importance of proportion in architectural photography. That's the thing that I do. And also in other types of photography. One thing I will say here is don't take a photo with a wide angle lens with someone's hand like that right at the front, because it's going to distort everything and make them look unnatural. Keep a human's proportions correct. realistic. You distort a human body, nobody's going to thank you for that. Okay, that was it. Quite a long post. Some good stuff in there, like I say. But yeah, check it out at rickmcavoyphotography.com. Also, check out my YouTube channel for lots of other videos that I've recorded, mainly about my blog posts, but there will be some new stuff coming up which I'm excited to share with you. And also, I'd just like to mention my splendid, I would say that, wouldn't I? Photography Explained podcast, which is available on all good podcast providers. Easy for you to say, Rick. And it has its own website, photographyexplainedpodcast.com. Okay, I'm done. Thanks for watching. If you want to know next time I upload a video to YouTube, all you need to do is subscribe, drop a comment in the comment box. I always get back to you eventually with any comments. Always great to hear from you guys. And with that, I will say thank you, take care, stay safe. Cheers from me, Rick.